everyone, welcome to Grow Roots. This is Shannon, and today I will be doing my late winter pruning in my garden, and I'll be talking all about when you should do your late winter pruning in your garden, what plants should you prune in late winter, and how exactly do I prune all of those plants, how much to take off, what do I take out, all of those things. So I'll be answering all of your questions today. So here we are in late winter here in North Texas. I am on the border of zone 8A and 8B, and we are in just the very beginning of February, which is the absolute perfect time to do late winter pruning for here in North Texas. Most websites that you would look up when you research late winter gardening will say that late January into February is the perfect time to do late winter pruning, but I would say I think it depends on where you are and what is considered late winter for your area, for your zone. So some of you, like our last frost date is March 14th, so we are about 4 to 5 weeks away from our last frost. We're in the last part of winter, so right now is late winter for us, and it's perfect for late winter pruning. But for you, maybe your last frost date isn't until May or June, or I don't even know, but 4 to 6 weeks before your last frost date, I think, is probably what you would consider late winter for your area, and so that is the perfect time for late winter pruning. So the next question that you might ask is, what plants should I prune in late winter? So there's actually, at least for my garden, there's a lot of plants that need to be pruned in late winter. So the first category that I think about first when I think about late winter pruning are the flowering shrubs. Specifically, if you have a flowering shrub or tree that flowers on new growth that it will put out this year. If you have a flowering shrub or tree that blooms on the old growth from last year, for example, Hydrangea macrophylla or azaleas, let's see, what else can I think of? Red buds, those are all going to bloom in the springtime, usually early spring is when they'll put out their blooms. And they bloom on their growth from last year. So you do not want to prune those in late winter at all. However, the flowering shrubs that you have that bloom on new growth from this year are the ones that you need to prune in late winter or now. So those include, for me, for sure, panicle hydrangeas. I'm actually standing right next to a panicle hydrangea. Panicle hydrangeas are different from Hydrangea macrophylla. They bloom on the new growth. So right now is the perfect time. And actually, I would say if you have a panicle hydrangea, you must prune it in late winter if you want a really sturdy, healthy plant. And I'll show you how I do that in a little bit. But other examples would include like my Vitex tree. That is going to get ready to bud out, and then it will bloom in the summertime. Now's a perfect time to prune that. Here in the south, if you have a crepe myrtle, perfect time to prune it in late winter. Or if you have beautyberry or butterfly bush, rose of Sharon, or roses. So all of those are considered those flowering shrubs that are perfect for late winter pruning. So that's the first category. The next category of things that you want to think about pruning are any other deciduous trees or shrubs. Deciduous meaning they lose their leaves in the wintertime. If they're not flowering, and they lost their leaves in the wintertime, then now is the perfect time to prune them while they're dormant before they put out their new growth. Also, your evergreen shrubs and evergreen trees, most of your evergreen trees, be careful with the conifers and anything that like the pine that have needles and things like that. Those may have like specific times of the year that they need to be pruned. However, evergreen shrubs, evergreen trees, evergreen hedges, now is the time to prune those back as well before you see the new growth begin. So that would include your boxwoods, hollies. I have sunshine ligustrum that needs to get pruned, excess sage, and nandina. Next up, of plants that would need to be pruned would be all of your perennials, or most of your perennials. So perennials will typically die back during the winter time, and all of their foliage will die back. Some of my perennials are still a little bit evergreen, so I won't typically touch those. That are the ones that are getting ready to bloom in the spring, particularly, you do not want to touch. However, if the foliage is gone, just go ahead and cut that down. I like to cut mine about 3 to 4 inches from the ground. I like to be able to see where my perennials were growing so that I don't step on them when I'm doing my gardening tasks, and so that I don't plant another plant in its place, because I have done that before. And also, your ornamental grasses need to be pruned back at this time. I don't grow a whole lot of ornamental grasses because my husband requests that I don't grow them. He does not like them, y'all. I do like them, and I would like to grow them, but I respect him and his wishes in terms of what he wants growing around his home, and so we don't grow ornamental grasses. But if you do, oh, they're so beautiful. But now is the time that you need to prune those back as well. I think it varies in terms of which varieties you have and how much you want to prune off of those, but generally speaking, you want to cut those all the way back as soon as possible before that new growth starts. And lastly, you'll want to prune your fruit trees as well. Again, I don't really grow fruit trees. I don't have a lot of room for them, so that's why they're not in my garden. And I don't know the very specifics. I do know, I think each fruit tree has to be pruned a specific way according to its variety. So if you have a fruit tree, look up that particular variety and see how to prune that. But I do know late winter is the best time to prune them to encourage more fruit production. With all of that said, you definitely want to avoid pruning anything that's going to be flowering in the spring, or anything that's going to be flowering on old growth. So make sure you don't prune, your hydrangea macrophylla and your azaleas like I talked about earlier. You also basically want to consider the 3 Ds when you are pruning all of your late winter things. So remove anything that's dead. All of those dead branches need to go. Remove anything that's damaged. So if something like, cracked, or, you're noticing something wrong with it, then prune that off. And then you'll want to prune anything that is diseased as well. So for instance, like crepe myrtles, I don't grow crepe myrtles specifically because they are prone to crepe myrtle bark scale. It drives me crazy. It's really hard to get rid of. But if you have a crepe myrtle that has crepe myrtle bark scale, I'm not telling you to prune the whole thing off if the whole thing is infected with crepe myrtle bark scale. But if you only have a few branches that are infected with the crepe myrtle bark scale, then definitely prune those off, or prune it down to the crepe myrtle bark scale. But then you don't want to commit crepe murder, which is basically like topping off the entire tree. I would not recommend doing that. So if your bark scale is that bad, then definitely refer to an expert and see how to get rid of that crepe myrtle bark scale aside from pruning it. And then one more thing to think about when you are pruning in the pruning process: any branches that are crossing over, you want to get rid of those. And a lot of times what that will do is help thin out the bush or shrub or tree, whatever it is that you're pruning. You want to try to thin that out, especially in the central area, to encourage better airflow. And what you're doing is promoting a much healthier growth for this year. The growth will have room to grow, room to breathe, much better airflow, and you'll have a healthier plant. So basically, the things that I will be pruning in my garden today will consist of Spirea. I have a candy corn Spirea and a double play Big Bang Spirea that need to get pruned. They're just about to push out new growth, so I gotta prune those back. I will be pruning my panicle hydrangeas. I have quite a few Limelight hydrangeas and a little lime hydrangea, so those will get pruned. And then I'm going to try to get to my boxwoods today. They don't need too much, but they do need a little bit. I have a Texas sage, by the way, that would be included in the evergreen shrubs that, well, they do flower, but they're not going to flower until late summer, so they're good. I definitely need to prune back both of my Texas sages, and then I need to prune back my perennials. The foliage has definitely died off at this point, thanks to our huge ice storm that we had a week and a half ago or so. So I've got a lot of perennials to prune back there. And also my sunshine ligustrum will get a little bit of a pruning. We did a pretty hardcore prune in mid-fall or so, and so it's actually not too bad, but I'm gonna prune a little bit of that back as well, because now is the perfect time before it pushes out new growth. All right, so I'm ready to begin pruning, but I did gather some supplies. So the supplies that you'll need are your gardening gloves and some pruning shears. So I have a bigger set of pruning shears, and I have like a smaller set of pruning shears. I can use these for most of the perennials and things like that. I prefer to use a smaller one sometimes and the bigger one sometimes. And then for shrubs, sometimes you might need those loppers. I might need my loppers for that no, I don't think so. My Texas sage is pretty thin and it's branching, so I think I'll be able to take care of it with this. So the only thing I might need my loppers for is my Vitex tree. I don't think I'm going to be doing too much pruning to my Vitex, because I pruned it really heavily last year. And so, but yeah, if you have branches that are thicker than about this, you need those loppers. My loppers are not in the best condition. I honestly need to get a new pair for this year, but I haven't done that yet. And so anyway, let's just go ahead and get started. I think I'm going to start with my Spirea, because those absolutely have to get done today. I have a feeling they're going to push out new growth like any day now. So I want to get my Spireas done, and then we'll just go from there. And I apologize, the lighting is going to be kind of wonky in this video. It is in the morning time. It just feels like in the winter time, no matter where I am, the lighting is either way too dark or way too bright. My eyes are struggling. It's just kind of harsh in the winter time. So I do apologize. The lighting isn't the best, but I'll try my best to show you what I'm doing. So this is my double play Big Bang Spirea. And this was just planted in the ground this past year. And the growth compared to the candy corn Spirea is wonky. It's like, if you can see, like, this is the new growth. This is where it was pruned last year. And this new growth is all like, it's weepy. It's like a weeping habit, which I did not expect with this. And so I am trying to definitely, this one like is crossing over. So I'm definitely going to be getting, like, pruning that branch all the way down to the ground. I don't want that. It's like in the middle, taking up too much room, will create more airflow, all of that good stuff. I'm going to get that one too. Okay. So already that did a huge difference. Oh, I forgot to tell you, the other thing that you'll need, if you have it, is something to collect all of your clippings. So I'll be putting my clippings in there. I got this for Christmas, so I love it so much. There you go. Okay. That already does a huge difference. Now, the question is, how much do I want to cut off from last year? The last year's new growth. I think I'm going to keep this branch. I'm going to cut it. There's a little bit of damage right there. I'm going to cut it below that leaf node. Okay. And I have dead growth right here that I'm going to clip off. That's dead. There's dead growth here. I'm going to clip that off. And so on and so forth. I'm going to go through kind of the whole plant like this right here. Honestly, I'm tempted to leave this branch, but cut it above. What do I want? Do I want this new branch or not? Let's be conservative for now, and I'll keep those two new branches that are branching off. This one I will keep maybe to here. And when I'm doing my cuts, I'm cutting above each leaf node. You can see there are little nodes there, and that's where the new leaves are going to pop out. And so your prune cut is going to be right above that leaf node that you don't want. So there you go. This one looks like I'm going to cut these little guys off. When they get a little bit, I'm going to cut that guy off. Let's see. And then, yeah, I may just go ahead and cut this right there. I may cut that down. This almost looks like dead growth. It's also crossing. I'm gonna cut these branches off that are crossing like that, and then this branch is dead. So again, dead, damaged, disease, take it out. It's all dead and it's on the inside. Okay. This is a nice healthy branch. I'm going to cut it there. This looks dead, so I'm going to cut it off. This is a nice healthy branch. We'll just see. I'm going to be conservative at first, and I'll cut it right there. Oh, goodness. This was just a hot mess of growth, honestly. But believe it or not, it will fill in really beautifully and look like a beautiful shrub when it starts filling in. Get all that out of there. Okay, so I think that you get the idea. I'm going to go ahead and speed up the process now and show you the end result. Okay, so I am done with the candy corn. Okay, so I am done with the double play Big Bang Spirea pruning, and it does look a little bit wonky. This is only, you know, the first year that it's in the ground for me, so it's got mostly the base from last year. These are last year's branches, and then I kind of kept the base of the branches that branched out that were healthy still from last year. So right there I kept some of those branches branching off, kept. I had to clip this one way back because it was crossing with this one. I don't want crossing branches if I can help it. Yeah. And so I cut back a lot of the dead that was in the middle, and this is how it will look to begin the year, but I promise it will fill right out and look beautiful. Now to the candy corn Spirea, which is a little bit different. So here is the candy corn Spirea, which this is its, I think, third year. So this is like a mature shrub at this point. It did so very well last year, and it has a beautiful mounded habit as long as it gets pruned in late winter. So I'm gonna just try and create the most rounded habit, pruning. I will try to create the most rounded pruning that I can, and then also keeping in mind dead, damaged, disease, all of those, and crossing branches get pruned off. And I'm looking at the size. I don't want it to get any bigger than it got last year. You can see where I pruned it last year. I pruned it right down to here. So I can prune it back to last year's growth, and it probably would be fine, like keeping the bases of some of the other branches that it created last year. So that's probably the plan. You can cut these way back and they fill in and flush absolutely beautifully, and it's going to do that pretty soon here. So that's how I'm going to do this one. So candy corn Spirea is now pruned. I'm pretty happy with it. I pruned back almost all the way down to last year's growth. I left maybe just an inch or two above that. I tried to round it out the best I can. And I also wanted to show you, let's see if I can find it again. It did have one little leaf bud, a red leaf poking through. So that new growth is going to be all over the place. Let me find it real quick. Okay, here it is. You see that little red bud that almost looks like it's a flower coming out? That is what the new growth looks like on this candy corn spirea, and the double plate big bang will look like this as well. Just beautiful red growth. It looks like red flowers in the late winter, early spring. So I'm pruning this just in time. The rest of it will look like that in no time. I think it has a really beautiful rounded pruned shape to start off this year. On to the next flowering shrub that I will be pruning today. This is my Limelight hydrangea that I am training to be a standard. So this pruning is going to be a little bit different. I'm going to do the other Limelight hydrangeas in a moment, but this one will be different from the others because I'm training it to be a standard or a tree form shrub. And so this is only... well, I guess this is technically a 2-year-old shrub. The first year it was just rooting and growing branches. The second year, which was last year, I pruned off all of the other growth because I had one central stem that was a beautiful, straight up stem and strong that could be the base of my standard or tree hydrangea. And then last year, I only allowed, I know we're contending with shadows, guys, but oh well. I only allowed these 4 branches to form. Like, it wanted to form branches on all of those leaf nodes, if you can see, but I only allowed the branches to form on these 2 leaf nodes, 2 branches for each leaf node. All the rest of them I pruned off or picked off all throughout the season, and it tried to send up new shoots from the base as well, which I took off as well. So that's what you have to do when you're training it to be a standard. They take a long time to form this shape. That's why they are so expensive in the nurseries, y'all. But I figured I have time and I'd like to save the money, so why not just do this? So anyway, this year, I don't want too much growth on these branches. As you can see, each of these leaf nodes is going to try to form 2 branches and all the way up. So like we could potentially have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20 branches per stem. I don't want that. That is not good for the base of this tree. And so I only really want probably 2 to 4 branches per stem, which would equal 8 to 16 branches when I'm done with this season, and that's going to be perfectly fine. So what I have to do is find the first live leaf node, which is hard to tell in late winter, so we're going to be a little bit conservative to start off. But these leaf buds are not super swollen right now. At least it doesn't feel that way. I don't know if those will push out growth, but let's see. I do know that that one is swollen. I'm trying to get it to focus on it, but it's hard. There you go. That leaf node is swollen, so I do know that that will push out growth, and I think that leaf node is swollen. So I'll leave 2. I'm going to leave these 2 as well, and I'm going to cut this right here. And looking at the other branches, I think for these, I'm thinking I'm just going to leave 3 leaf nodes and call it a day. And we should get enough growth for me to get 2 to 4 branches per stem, and we'll see how it looks mid-season and see if we need to prune those branches off or not. But I want these to be short, because what happens is if I let growth happen on the ends of these, then these are gonna be too weak and they're gonna, not work. And I have this staked up already on an upside down tomato cage, and I do that on purpose because this year I want these to be upright. I made the mistake on my previous Limelight hydrangea standard where I didn't make sure these stayed upright, and the weight of the next branches totally brought these level, and I tried to stake it didn't work, and so they didn't have this upright habit that they should have. And so I'm trying to keep these upright. And yeah, again, I will definitely, I might prune right there so that it can rest on the tomato cage, honestly, and then see what happens after that. That might be the plan, so that the branches can definitely rest on that tomato cage and get the support that it needs. So that's the plan. So here's what it looks like when I am done. Typically I would have just left 3 leaf nodes and called it a day, but because I decided that I needed these to be long enough to be supported by this tomato cage, I allowed a little bit more growth than that. There you go. It's gonna have a great shape to start off this year, and I'll probably prune as we go along to make sure these branches have enough support. And on to my next panicle hydrangea, which is down here. This is a Limelight, and I do have some weeds that I need to be pulling, but anyway, I need to prune this guy back. So when you're not forming a hydrangea tree or a standard, then the rule of thumb is to cut back the panicle hydrangeas by 1/3, and again, remove all of the spindly branches, dead branches, damage, disease, and crossing over. And so that's what I'm going to be doing here. Alright, so this panicle hydrangea is all pruned. I probably didn't even prune it by 1/3. Maybe I did, maybe 1/4, something like that. But it has, I pruned off all of the spindly, all of the crossing. This is great for panicle hydrangeas to gather the strength that they need at the base, so that they're not completely weighed down when the blooms start, because these blooms are crazy huge, and so you do need to really make sure you have a good strong base to begin each year. So I have some more. I have 3 more panicle hydrangeas that were actually rooted last year. One that was rooted the year before, and I'm going to prune those. Those are actually in containers, but I'm going to prune them the same way. And here are those hydrangeas. Like I said, these are pretty young hydrangeas. These 2 were just growing roots last year. We'll talk about this in just a second, but I propagate hydrangeas almost every year, and so I have new hydrangeas to go every year. But anyway, because they are so small and I want to create big strong bases, I pruned these pretty heavily, more than the 1/3 rule. Gardening is not a hard and fast, follow the gardening rule no matter what. There are situations where you can kind of think of, well, logically it makes more sense to do this. And so again, this one was crossing over. I had to cut this pretty early on because it was crossing all the way over here, and I don't want that. I want this to grow over there, and I want that to grow over there. And so this one is a little bit wonky, but I think this year this will be a nice strong base for the future shape of this Limelight. Same thing here. This one only had 1 little stem. It could be a perfect little tree form, but it's really not tall, and it's never going to get taller than this. The trunk of the tree is never going to get taller than how it is right now. It'll just get wider to support the growth on top. But yeah, I mean, this isn't going to be a standard necessarily, so I let these guys, I had to prune them back because again, these are such thin branches. You don't want tons and tons of branches growing on top of them. They can't support it, so they will flop. So in this respect, because it is such a young plant, I do have to prune it fairly heavily to create a strong base. And then this guy is a year older. You can see these are last year's supports because I had to support the stems because they were falling over. This one too, is so interesting. This is one Limelight, but the trunks, is split in 2 right here. And so what we've got going on are 2 crossing branches right here that grow all the way up here. I have 2 choices. Hang on, let me get these out so you can see better. The 2 choices are basically to choose one of these to completely prune back, which I totally could do that. The other thing I'm thinking about is these leaf nodes down here, just to make sure, throughout this season, I could not allow any branches to form until right about here when they are not crossed any longer. But you know what? I think I am going to choose to prune one of these back. It's hard because these are nice, big, strong branches that probably one of those should have been pruned last year. I think I missed out on that. And so, I think I'm going to prune this guy to that leaf node. There will be a possibility of 2 branches here, but prune it back to here. I think it'll be a stronger plant. These are just going to be rubbing against each other, growing into each other. That's not going to be a good thing for this plant, so I will probably prune that right there. Okay, so let's talk about the Limelight hydrangea cuttings that I'm getting. And I'm going to do an experiment as well this year and think about the candy corn Spirea pruning. Basically, I've done this for many years. This is a perfect specimen. This cutting that I just created is going to be a perfect cutting for me to try to propagate. And when you look up, there's Chloe. Say hi, Chloe. When you look up propagating Limelight hydrangeas, it says the perfect time to do that would be for, I think, the somewhat new growth, semi-hardened growth, something like that, or the hardwood. And for me, the success has been in the hardwood. And these are hardwood cuttings. These are last year's cuttings. And so what I do is I take this pile here, and I'm literally like, these are good. These are nice, strong specimens. Like this one would probably be good, but yeah, I'm not going to prune that any heavier. I'm just going to, all of these are probably good. This one, not so much. It's not thick enough. Again, that one, not thick enough. This one actually might work. This is kind of on the cusp. It's a little bit thicker than those, if you can see. Well, this one I'm choosing because it's too spindle, like too, it's not straight, and this one's honestly not too super straight. But what I have done in the past is stick these horizontally in the ground, because each of these leaf nodes could potentially produce roots. So it could create a new plant that way. And then this one's good. And I've got some others over there, but a lot of those look way too spindly for me. This actually might be a little bit too thick. I've found that the thick ones are a little bit harder to produce roots from as well. So let's just, like this one might be good. This is actually a nice straight one, and that might be good. So what I will do is stick these literally right here. This is the spot that I do it. I've just had success there, and so I'm not going to tamper with success. And for 2 weeks, I'm going to let those harden off in the weather. It doesn't matter if it's winter weather, summer weather, it doesn't matter. They're just going to harden off. They're going to be exposed to the elements and dry out a little bit. And then I'm going to fill this one with some brand new dirt. I actually had eucalyptus growing in here. I think it's dead now. But anyway, I'll fill this with some new potting soil. And after 2 weeks, after they've been hardened off, I stick them into the potting soil and I just leave them for the entire season. And then by the end of the season, I typically have a success rate of about 10 to 20%. And that's not amazing, but when you're propagating, like that's kind of how it goes, especially, well, for me. I'm not the best propagator, okay? But I have found a lot of success propagating limelights for whatever reason. And again, I get 10 to 20% success rate, just sticking these in the soil and leaving them the entire season, making sure that the water or the soil stays somewhat moist, not too wet, not dry, all of the things. And that's how I have grown all of these. And this one that I showed you, honestly, all of the limelights that I currently have been ones that I have propagated from my original limelight, which actually did not survive, but that's okay. And then what I thought about this year is a limelight hydrangea is basically a flowering shrub. The candy corn Spirea is very much a similar growth habit, of the sense that it blooms, it's a shrub, and it blooms later on in the season from the new growth. And I wondered, if I have such great success with propagating limelights, I wonder if I would have just as much success propagating the Spirea the same way from the hardwood cuttings. So that's going to be my new experiment this year, to gather some of these. They're not as thick. So I will try some thin ones like this. I will try to get some that might be slightly thicker, and I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to harden them off and stick them in that dirt over there. I think over there is a perfect situation because it's kind of a part sun situation, so they won't fry necessarily, but they'll get enough sun to stimulate root growth too. And so that's what I'm going to try with the candy corn Spirea. And the last shrubs that I have to prune back here are my Texas sage. I have some in my front garden, but this Texas sage is struggling. It was on the struggle bus in late last season. It did great early and mid-season, and then something happened late season and it just defoliated. And it's starting to bud out, but I want to give it a rejuvenation prune, a good prune, and also that helps it flowering in late season as well. I didn't used to prune my Texas sage at all, and I got very little blooms throughout the season, and then last year I pruned it and it bloomed beautifully. And maybe that was it, like the blooms just took all the nutrients. I don't know. Texas sage is super tough, super hardy, doesn't need a lot of nutrients, so I'm not sure that was the case. But anyway, we're going to give this guy a rejuvenation prune and hope that it does well this season. Let's not forget about my sunshine ligustrum that is back here. This is one that I have pruned to be a tree form. It is 8 feet tall. These are not supposed to get 8 to 9 feet tall like this one is. And so to make more room down at the bottom so I can even get around it, I pruned it up. And so I do want to take all of that little growth out. And then I pruned it pretty good in late fall, but you can see there are some branches that I want to get rid of that are up there. I tell you what, that one is such a pain to prune, and I didn't even do a super hard pruning job either. But there you go. That's the shape that I want it to keep this year. Hi, Chloe. It's just so much work. I will tell you that tree forming a sunshine ligustrum, which is a really aggressive grower, it's difficult to maintain. Like, that's the best that I could do on that trunk. I couldn't get to really all of that new growth. It's literally thousands and thousands of new little branches to be picked off. And I did the best that I could, but it is a bit of a pain, I will say. And so now, since I don't even know if I'm going to get to my front yard today, this is taking, obviously, you know, every garden job for me is this way. It takes longer than I anticipate. So I'm going to prune back my perennials that are back here, and then I might just call it a day. I do still have boxwoods and sunshine ligustrum in the front, and maybe my Vitex tree, and I've already pruned the perennials, so that's done and well. But I do have a little bit more to do, but I have perennials to do back here, and I wanted to show you the perennials, so let's get going with that. Let's see. The first perennial that I do want to cut back is this dwarf Mexican petunia. It's looking pretty rough, and I want the new growth to come through, and I don't want to see that old growth and that old dead stuff at all. I have some echinacea that I will prune back just a little bit. I'll leave 3 or 4 inches of growth so that I can see the echinacea. Like, I don't think I pruned this echinacea back here enough yet. I will prune off all that dichondra, all of this dichondra. Hollyhock. This is my first year growing hollyhock. That's what's right there. And I'm not sure what to do with that. Then looking in this garden, I already pruned back some of the things that are here, the echinacea, this Shasta daisy got a little bit of damage from the ice storm, so I'm gonna like take out the damaged stuff. Same thing over here. This Texas rock rose I will prune back. I already pruned my Veronica. This is still a little bit of Veronica that's alive. And then I have Russian sage that I pruned back a little bit. Again, first year with Russian sage, but it actually is leafing out from the old growth. And so I may prune this just a little bit more. I don't want my Russian sage to be super, super tall. Like this one's pretty low. I pruned back my blanket flower. Again, some of that is still alive. And you know, the foliage is. I didn't prune my oak leaf hydrangea over there because it is so, so tiny. And parts of it have gotten broken off from my dog anyway. And so, oh, and my hostas have already been pruned, but I do need to prune back this leopard plant. And then the ferns are fine. The hostas are already pruned. Yeah, so that's what I'll do back here. Okay, so I just looked it up, and hollyhock blooms in June through September. Or at least that's what I read. I don't have experience with it, so I'm not super sure. You guys can comment down below and let me know. But I think I'm going to prune back all of the dead growth. I still have a little bit of growth that's still alive. Anything dead, diseased, or damaged, I will prune back. And that's not going to harm any blooms because it won't bloom until June. So it will bloom on all new growth. Okay, so let me show you what I just did in my backyard. I'd completely forgotten about my side garden. And so this is pink Turk's cap. I went ahead and pruned all that down. I left all those leaves at the base. Normally I would clean that up, but because we could get really cold again, I'm going to leave that there for protection of the plant. And then back here is Mexican petunia. This is the full-size Mexican petunia, so I just cut those down. I may even cut those more later because all of that will just be new growth from the base of the plant. This is oak leaf hydrangea. Definitely do not prune this. It's about to bloom in the spring. So you see all that new growth. That's going to become blooms. So definitely don't want to prune that. And then over here, I already pruned. This is Mystic Spire's Blue Salvia. Oh, the poor thing. It is rated down to zone 8, so it is grown at an annual. However, because it's down to zone 8 and I'm zone 8, it could definitely survive. However, it was just transplanted in the late fall, and poor guy struggled with the transplant anyway. I'm not sure if that plant will make it. I had some amaryllis back here that I trimmed all those dead leaves from. I trimmed this boxwood just a little bit. I have Greg's mist flower growing right here that I trimmed. You can see there's some new growth here that is perfectly fine. So that's fun. And then that is Scabiosa that is still evergreen. I did not prune that back. And let's go up here. I'll show you. A lot of work, y'all. I trimmed these Echinacea purpurea down just a little bit more. It is a very, very tall plant, so I did leave the bottom there. I just need to see where that plant is located. The hollyhock, oh, it's so precious. So that's all that growth that was nice and good. I cleaned out all of the old growth that was icky. Oh, I forgot about the Mexican petunias. Oh my goodness gracious, y'all. I got this dichondra out, and out of that as well, Shasta daisies, all of the kind of deadish looking stuff was pruned out. Same thing here. Texas rock rose was pruned back pretty well, but again, it's got some green foliage. I didn't prune that back too much. Left some of that green stuff there. I pruned back the Russian sage just a little bit more, but yeah, it's getting new growth on the old wood. It's kind of acting like a shrub. It's interesting. So that got done. Leopard plant got pruned back completely, and I think that's it. I still got to prune those darn dwarf Mexican petunias. Oh my goodness, I am done for today, y'all. I pruned this Vitex tree like up on top. There's tons of spindly branches, crossing branches, but I am not going to get up on a ladder, not today anyway. I pruned everything down below as far as I could reach, and so there's lots of air circulation under there. Everything should be good to go. And then honestly, I think the Vitex is so tough, it's going to be just fine, leaving all of the up top just fine. It's and then here's my sunshine Ligustrum hedge, and we hard pruned it in late fall. Probably not the best time to hard prune, to be quite honest, but it's still okay. And then the winter has damaged it a little bit, like it always does, but it will refoliate and fill in and look absolutely beautiful, and it'll be nice green, like a lime green with some yellow, and it'll be absolutely gorgeous. I also pruned back one of the perennials I didn't get to was my Gerbera daisy. These are not hardy for all of you, but they are here in zone 8, and it had put out a ton of new growth in December because we were so warm, and even some flowers and buds like you see there. But this ice storm completely damaged all of the foliage, so I had to cut it back. I had to cut, like, all of the new foliage is gone, but I do believe that it will flush back out here pretty quickly. We're having some really warm temperatures right now. Gosh, I think it feels to me like it's 80 degrees out here because I'm working, but I'm sure the high today is 71, and I think we're already at that high in midday. So Gerbera daisy, and then let me show you. This is all of my clippings for today, y'all. Oh my goodness. That doesn't count the Limelight hydrangea clippings that I'm saving, plus some of the candy corn Spirea. But here we go. Here's my baby gem boxwood hedge. I don't prune these like a hedge. I prune these kind of like little balls, although I completely admit I'm not perfect. This does not look like perfect spheres. I totally understand that. I just do the best that I can, and they look good to me, and they will start out the season nice, freshly pruned. There was already some new growth on them, and then there was a little bit that was damaged by the ice storm too, but it was already starting to push out new growth with a few days of warm weather. So those will start out the year doing great. I already pruned my Carolina Sapphire Cypress. That is one thing that I would prune a little bit. This is an evergreen conifer. You got to be careful with conifers, but this type definitely can be pruned in late winter, but I don't need to because it got way too bad in December in the warm growth, so I just I just pruned it because I'm trying to keep it as a topiary, a 3-ball topiary. And goodness, I can even see some new growth since the ice storm. Look at that. Oh, it's just so crazy. So there you have it, and I've already pruned most of the perennials back here. But yeah, late winter pruning, it's a big job. I started out here at about 9 o'clock this morning, and then it is almost noon. Now I'm ready for lunch. I'm really thirsty. I'm really hot, believe it or not, in the wintertime. And I mean, it probably wouldn't take you guys 3 hours to do your late winter pruning. I just, number one, had a lot to prune, and number two, had to film at the same time. So that actually takes up a lot of that time too. So I thank you all so much for watching. If you have any questions about late winter pruning or specific plants, feel free to drop your question down in the comments. But thank you all so much for watching. I hope you all have a beautiful day. Bye-bye, everybody.